Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something critical, the American public school system, specifically how it's measuring up, or maybe not measuring up, to what the 21st century actually demands. The digital age, everything interconnected. Yeah, we've been digging through sources, and they point to a pretty fundamental issue. The vast majority, like 133,000 public schools. Many are still running on fumes from the early 20th century. Think rows of desks, lectures, note-taking, passive stuff. The sources are blunt, they say. It essentially trains students to be followers, not leaders. And that leaves this huge gap, right, between school and the real world.
A huge gap, a debilitating one, really. And that's where this idea, deeper learning DL comes in. It's framed as a kind of blueprint for changing the whole system. DL sets up basically 6 core goals.
Oh.
And they're all about shifting students from just soaking up information to actually, creating knowledge, preparing them for a future we can't even fully predict. These 6 things cover a lot. Yes, mastering the core subjects, obviously, but also, crucially, thinking critically, solving complex problems.
Collaboration, too, right?
Yes, working collaboratively, communicating effectively, learning how to learn on your own, being self-directed.
Okay.
And finally, having what they call an academic mindset. Resilience, persistence, that sort of thing. It's a complete rethink.
And what really struck me looking through the material is this isn't just some pie-in-the-sky theory for fancy private schools.
Yeah.
The examples we're talking about today, they come from 8 different public schools, charters, magnets, regular public schools all over the U.S.
That's right.
Rural Indiana, urban Philly, diverse student bodies, high percentages of low-income kids, minority students.
It really shows that deeper learning isn't about the zip code. It's about how you design the learning itself.
So, okay, the big question. If students are so used to just sitting back passively, how do you actually break that habit? Let's get into the first strategy these DL schools use. It seems to revolve around building a real learning community, using these ideas they call connect and empower.
Right. You have to actively disrupt that passive history. Connect is all about relationships, trust, making everyone feel responsible for the group's learning. Take the Avalon School up in St. Paul, Minnesota. They do this fascinating thing called Project Brainstorm. It's like a disorientation for new kids. Instead of rules and schedules, they ask 2 questions students usually haven't heard before. What do you want to learn, and what would you like to do better?
And I imagine students who've spent years just waiting for instructions are like, what?
Exactly. They often just freeze up. I don't know is the common answer, because honestly, who's ever asked them to drive? But the teachers take that I don't know or whatever vague answer they get and they run with it. They immediately have students list skills they already have, maybe playing guitar, sketching, leadership in their neighborhood.
Oh.
The point hits home instantly. You're not just here to receive. You're a resource for everyone else here.
That flips the power dynamic right away.
Yeah.
There's a similar idea, though maybe more intense, at Casco Bay High School in Maine. Their freshman quest.
Oh, definitely. That's like the ultimate community builder. The entire 9th grade goes camping on an island for 3 days. And it all leads up to the ceremony where the freshmen stand before the whole school community and ask formally, do we accept this box?
A box? What's in it?
Notes detailing all the skills, the talents, the contributions they, as a class, promised to bring to the school that year.
Wow.
They get formally welcomed in, and it shifts their whole mindset from I'm here to be taught to I'm here to contribute.
That foundation of trust and community, it really sets the stage for the next piece, doesn't it? It's this idea of empower, getting students to actually lead their own learning. That sounds like a big promise.
It is a big promise, and the material connects it directly to Maslow's hierarchy.
Safety, belonging.
Exactly. Before you can expect students to chase abstract goals like creativity or deep knowledge, the school has to provide that base layer. Safety, feeling like they belong, knowing their support. And the support system, it's the safety net that makes empowerment work, especially for students facing big challenges outside school. There's this powerful story about David Boone at MC2 STEM High. This kid was literally homeless in high school.
Wow.
But the teachers, the principal, they rallied around him, provided incredible support, and he ended up getting into over 20 colleges, went to Harvard on a full scholarship.
That's incredible. It just shows that, the lack of resources people often assume holds kids back. It can be overcome with intentional structural support, not just academics, but basic needs.
Yeah.
So how does that empowerment translate to everyday school stuff? Like, what about something as routine as a parent-teacher conference? Does that change?
Oh, completely. It flips the whole script. At schools like King Middle School or Impact Academy, they ditch the old model, where the adults talk about the student. Instead, they have student-led conferences. The student prepares, presents their own work, their strengths, where they're struggling, what their goals are.
That sounds like a lot of pressure for a middle schooler. Does it actually shift who's accountable?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just, making things look different?
No, the sources say it genuinely transfers ownership. Teachers coach them hard on how to handle tough stuff, like talking about a bad grade and how to ask for the help they need. Accountability moves from the grade book to the student's own story. As one student put it, "This is my moment."
Okay, so students are engaged, they feel ownership. The next big question is, what are they learning? Is it relevant? Which brings us to contextualize, tying subjects together, keeping it real, trying to answer that classic teenage question, why do I even need to learn this?
Right. And Casco Bay's junior journey to Appalachia is a prime example in the readings. It's this massive 9-month unit focused on sustainability and resource degradation. It weaves together English reading novels about the region with chemistry, looking at the carbon cycle, fossil fuels. Then humanities covers Appalachian culture, bluegrass music.
In journalism, too.
Yeah, they make documentaries, do oral histories about poverty there. The learning isn't just in silos, it's all needed for this big, adventurous trip they take. That's real motivation.
That makes sense. Subjects serving a larger purpose.
Exactly. Another cool example is from MC2 STEM High, their Bridges capstone project.
Bridges. How does that connect different subjects?
Well, in math, they're using trigonometry, figuring out structural stability, the literal engineering of bridges. But then at the same time, in English and social studies, they're exploring bridges metaphorically. Like how love can bridge divides in Romeo and Juliet, or how the civil rights movement acted as a bridge to a more just society.
I like that depth. But you can't really do that kind of integrated learning just within the school walls, can you? Which leads us to the next pillar, reach. Networking beyond the school. The sources emphasize this is huge, especially for kids in high poverty areas, because it builds social capital.
Absolutely critical. Social capital. Those contacts, those resources, it's often just assumed for kids from wealthier backgrounds. MC2 STEM is like the gold standard here because they embed partnerships right into the school day. So freshmen take classes at the Great Lakes Science Center. They can use the giant heart exhibit or the wind turbines for physics lessons. It's right there. And then sophomores, they attend classes at GE International Lighting's corporate campus. They're literally learning inside a major company.
Wow. Actually on site.
Yeah.
And that's where the famous buddy system comes in, right, at GE?
That's the one. Sophomores basically speed date employees, engineers, managers, you name it, to find a mentor.
Long-term mentor.
Yeah, someone who sticks with them, offering advice, tutoring, references. There's that great story about the GE mentor they jokingly called his effort Operation Get John into West Point because he worked for years helping his mentee get into the military academy. And the key thing here is authenticity. This isn't about making copies or fetching coffee. At MC2, students might simulate product development, inventing something with LEDs, making a whole business plan.
Real projects.
Right. Or at Science Leadership Academy, they're doing actual astronomy research with the Franklin Institute or running recycling audits for the museum. It's complex, meaningful work.
Okay, that makes total sense. So we have the supportive community, the relevant learning, the outside connections. The next piece seems to be about making it personal for each kid. That's inspire customizing learning to really hook each student.
Exactly. And here, the teacher's role shifts again. They're less like a lecturer, more like a coach, or even a scout, looking for that individual spark, that hook for each student. There's a really detailed story about Andrea Lane at MC2. Super smart in math in middle school, but totally bored, acting out, clashing with teachers. Her teacher, Brian McCalla, who it turns out used to be a VP at a Fortune 500 company, saw her potential and suggested she look into mechanical engineering.
Just one suggestion, and that clicked.
It totally clicked. Suddenly, she's managing the school's fab lab, with all the high-tech equipment.
Yeah.
She travels to Peru for a conference. She designs a Christmas ornament for the city using her tech skills. She summed up the difference. You're just always doing something. They found her hook.
That's powerful. And the sources had other quick examples too, right? Like Holly Marsh at Avalon.
Yeah, turned volunteering into an internship, became a paid national park ranger at 16.
Amazing.
Or Justin Ehringhaus at Casco Bay. Started off shy, kind of average, but teachers noticed his interest in Asia helped him get into dual enrollment Japanese classes. He ended up studying abroad in Japan. But, none of this personalization, this complex project work is really possible at scale without the right tools. Which brings us to the last principle, wire. Making technology the servant, not the master. Tech is essential for DL, no question. but how it's used is key. It needs to enable efficiency, collaboration, mirror how professionals actually work.
So how does tech serve the student in these DL schools, instead of just being another distraction?
Well, a big part is facilitating that self-direction we talked about. Learning management systems, things like Echo or Project Foundry, are crucial. At Avalon, for instance, students use Project Foundry's Brainstorm tool. They have to lay out their project goals, their milestones, and this is important. Explain how the project meets state standards before a teacher even looks at it for approval.
Ah, so they have to do the aligning themselves.
Exactly. It forces that higher level planning.
That's a smart use of tech for accountability.
But, and this is a big but in the sources, technology isn't magic. It's not a cure-all. There's this great cautionary tale from a teacher named Amy Blackburn. She used the old dihydrogen monoxide hoax, trying to get people to ban water.
Right, listing all its dangers.
Yeah. She used it to show students, look, you have access to all this information, these amazing tools, but you have to think critically about whether they're helping you learn or just getting in the way. Vetting information is the skill, not just using the app.
Okay, so pulling it all together, these 6 ideas. Connect, empower, contextualize, reach, inspire, and wire. They're not just tweaks. They fundamentally change the student's role.
Right.
From just consuming information passively to being an active, self-directed leader. And the results back it up, right? Higher graduation rates, higher college enrollment compared to district averages.
Absolutely. And the impact, it's not just statistical, it's deeply emotional. There's this scene described at Impact Academy. Parents, landscapers, mechanics, folks coming straight from their jobs, watching their kids run a really sophisticated Socratic seminar, just debating complex ideas. And the look on the parents' faces. The source calls it priceless, filled with amazement and pride. That image, that could be the reality for all kids in public education.
It really reframes the whole conversation, doesn't it? If this kind of transformation is already happening in public schools, scattered across the country, what does that tell us about the limits we usually assume?
It leads to a really challenging final thought. It echoes something former Education Secretary Richard Riley said. We're basically educating students now for jobs that don't exist yet.
Using technologies that haven't been invented.
To solve problems we don't even know are problems yet. So, the question for you listening is this. If these deeper learning principles clearly work, if they demonstrably prepare students for that unknown future, why are schools like these still the exception, just a tiny minority, and not the actual standard across the entire country? That's something to really think about, especially in your own community.